Welcome to the Protagonist Show. I'm Dan Vaughn, joined by my fabulous co-host, Mr. Joshua Duder. How we doing this evening, Mr. Duder?
Fantastic, Dan Vaughn. Lots of soccer. Can I tell you something that happened this morning? Before we get into it,
this is the banter portion of the show.
Yeah, I won a 1996 Rochester Raging Rhino scarf that says Paytech Park on it from back in the olden days. So that'll adorn the scarf section in the near future. I'm very excited. It was like $10. I couldn't believe I was the only person that was bidding on it. So that's my golden find for the day.
I did a thing 2 days ago. I was home from work and lounging on the couch as one does, and I went down the wormhole that is eBay and Manchester United jerseys. Yikes. And I was sort of thumbing through it. And yeah, there were some that were 120, 150, but there was one for $40 from like 8 years ago. And I was like, $40. I was like, you know what? I'll just throw an offer down to 35 and see if he bites. It's on its way.
Winner.
I love me an old Manchester United jersey. I'm all for it.
Fair.
Let's kick off some topics.
Absolutely. Did you want me to introduce the Jagermeister Cup results? Because I'm happy to do it, Dan.
Well, it's on our notes. It says Josh.
I know. I see that. Friday, April 20th. Well, let's do it. Let's get stuck in the Jagermeister results real quick. So on Friday, great start. On Friday, April 25th, NCFC 1, Charlotte Independence 2. That was the only Jagermeister Cup on Friday. We moved to Saturday. We had there's a whole slew of these. DCFC 1, Pittsburgh Riverhounds 0, Hartford Athletic 2, Hearts of Pine 0, Lexington SC 0, Loudoun United 1, Ford Madison 0, Indy 11 4, 1 Knox 2, FC Tulsa 2, 1 Knoxville advanced on penalties 4-2. By advanced, I think they added points to their mini table in group play. I'm still a little confused. I think that's how it worked out. FC Naples 1, Charleston Battery 0, Lou City 4, Richmond Kickers 1, Tormenta 2, Greenville Triumph 1, Tampa Bay Rowdies 3, Miami FC 3, Miami Advance on Pens 4-3. They get the points in group play.
Yeah, we're having all kinds of technical and human failures on this episode. It's going to be a good one. I can feel it. Let's cover the rest of those results from the Jagermeister Cup. Texoma 0, El Paso Locomotive 0, and of course, El Paso Advance on Penn 6-5. New Mexico United 2, Union Omaha 0. Orange County SC 1, Las Vegas Lights 3, Phoenix Rising 0, San Antonio FC 1, Sac Republic 1, AV Alta FC 0. On Sunday, wrapping up the first round of the Jagermeister Cup this year, Westchester SC 1, Rhode Island 4, a little bit of a beat down there, Birmingham 3, Chattanooga Red Wolves 1, Spokane Velocity 2, and Oakland Roots 1. Josh, what'd you think of this first round? What stood out to you in it?
I think there were some teams that were shy. I think there were some cagey matches to begin with. Maybe some of these teams are still a little not used to the idea of playing teams from a different league or a different system yet. But you could tell which teams decided we're just going to get over it. Some of the big wins, like Rhode Island going on the road and beating Westchester 4-1, that really showed the gulf in playing class. I don't want to say class, but maybe just in skill.
Yeah.
Between championship and League One. I think another one like that was probably Indy 11 going on the road to Ford Madison and blasting them 4-0. And Ford Madison is a very good USL League One team. Mm-hmm. And Indy 11 is a very mid-table championship team. So there is sort of a big divide here. I think the biggest one for me, Dan, was Lou City. It's not a surprise because Lou City's they're the class. They're like the cream of the crop in championship. And they beat Richmond Kickers 4-1. I was kind of pulling for kickers just because, I like those League One teams. I like an underdog story. But Lou City are just fantastic. It was just a good clobbering.
Yeah, well, Lou City's chewing up championship as well, still undefeated right now. And it makes sense that they would continue that sort of run in the Jagermeister Cup. I think, Josh, when I think about the Jagermeister Cup, I know this year they expanded the field and brought in championship, which I think that from a league perspective and from the casual fan perspective, you'd hope that would begin to build more interest in this cup competition as you see different levels of the USL system kind of battle it out. I would love it, honestly, if next year they would find some way of working in USL League 2. Maybe a 10 or 12 teams to get an opportunity to go into this. I think that's an awesome, an opportunity to bring in some of your big name Vermont Green or Asheville City or some of these clubs that have big followings that could host a cup competition and give it a good atmosphere and make it interesting for fans. I think that's a great opportunity to showcase another level. Of course, once Premier rolls, if they continue this cup competition, which I think that's the assumption, you'd see even more interaction between these levels. And I think in theory, that's good, right? I think that's why people love the Open Cup. And I think it's kind of interesting to see, can this also be something that draws eyes to this league? And I think that's where I'm at as we consider the Jagermeister Cup. First of all, awesome that they named it or got a sponsor. I know technically I think it's called the USL Cup, but having a interesting, everyone has an idea of what Jagermeister, sort of connotations that comes along with that. But I think it's fun. It's a neat looking logo. It sort of adds another layer to this. The ball sitting on the Jagermeister bottle next to the field. I think all that's great. I think my question is, can this penetrate into the average soccer fan's radar in a way that maybe USL League One has not yet, or maybe even Championship hasn't yet? Can this become a competition that draws eyes, maybe something that generates a level of broadcasting interest or reason to get it on TV or onto a bigger streaming platform? I guess those are the things that I think about. I'd love to know, do you think, can this cup turn into something significant beyond the average USL fan?
Yeah, the number one thing is just have to give it time and don't scrap it. I know that if that's your intent, is to see it grow, then you have to give it time and just water the seeds and let it sprout and grow on its time that is necessary. If you want to include USL League 2 teams, I think that's a great idea. I think it could be first right of refusal for division winners. Maybe so you get your Des Moines Menace in there. You get a team from Florida like Sarasota, which I think they're going up to League One anyway. But you get the gist. These stronger teams like Lions Bridge, who are in League Two, maybe we haven't heard of them, but they would be great stories to see in this competition. The problem with that, Dan, is money. And even though this is a sponsored tournament by Jagermeister, we probably should all buy a fifth of Jagermeister tonight if we want to put some more money into this tournament.
Should we also consume it, Josh?
Maybe we just put it on. Maybe we just put it on the shelf behind us and say that we're supportive of the USL Cup and Jagermeister in general. We'd like to see them maybe up the ante and help these USL League 2 sites afford the travel. Could you imagine seeing a team like the Long Island Rough Riders advance to a point where they have to play somewhere in California or something? That organization can hardly cover that travel cost. So that's the only down part of dreaming big, is just making sure that maybe we could spread load the cost of that for those teams that have budget issues. I just
want to push just a little bit on that, because I was thinking about it. It seems to me you could effectively count on a lot of these USL League 2 clubs not advancing, right? You could count on it, because just the challenge of playing against, say, a championship club when you're an amateur side would be significant. Now you have to be careful because things can happen, but maybe the league, foots that travel bill, or it's or they have all of the clubs that participate toss in a certain amount of money to cover those travel stipends for if should an amateur club advance. I think there's things you could build in just because it might be fun. I think, we were talking about like what teams that you would include if you consider teams that might have aspirations of becoming professional or moving up in the ranks of the USL system. I think that's where you could insert those teams.
Like invitational. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, if you want to join it, you let us know a month before the planning stages or 2 months before the planning stages, and you get into the group play.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because what you would obviously want teams that would bring full rosters, that would be prepared for the kind of expenditures that it would take to participate in a competition like this. But if you have a team that's thinking about it, or behind scenes has put out feelers about the potentially moving up in the ranks, that's something you could do to kind of showcase that team, and they can sort of get a feel for it. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. But again, coming back, I think you were about to circle back to that. Can this penetrate beyond the USL bubble?
That's the real trick, right? I mean, we can find ways internally for it to afford to include those teams, but I think the long-term objective is for it to get eyes on, not just butts and seats, because butts and seats will happen. Local fans will turn up, and you're going to get the local fans. That's great, but you want to get more eyes on these streams. So maybe the trick is just, I mean, look, the first week of streams was great. I mean, it was on ESPN Plus. I think there's probably some on Golazo as part of their total game package. So the games are out there, making those available, full match replays, highlights, just get it into people's inboxes, get it on their phones. And I think that the number one ingredient, Dan, for making this something significant is patience. Do not pull the plug on it. Only make the slightest changes to make it better. USL, I'm begging you, just take it nice and slow. This is a great idea. It just needs time.
Speaking of cup competitions that are maybe a little further down the road as far as their development and pathway, the US Open Cup round of 32 will kick off on Tuesday the 6th. We'll be recording Wednesday the 7th. We could maybe even recap some of those matches that are happening. But before we get there, we've got to intro some of these matchups. This is where the rest of MLS, I think some championship clubs are also coming in at this level. Am I right on that? I could be wrong.
I think championship clubs entered in the previous 2 rounds. I think some of the lowest finishing championship teams actually entered in the first round. Dan.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So now we're into the round of 32. All USL teams have either been knocked out or have entered. And now all Major League Soccer teams are now in. Previously, some of the MLS Next Pro teams had entered. So we're into the final stage of new teams, and we're gonna start whittling them down, I believe.
Excellent. Well, if you want to start on the first half of these matchups, so you can go through them, maybe talk about a couple of the ones that we're looking forward to.
We've got NCFC, or North Carolina FC, versus Charlotte FC of MLS. That will be a fun one. DC United versus Charleston Battery. I mean, those are 2 historic clubs going at it. Nashville of the MLS, formerly of USL, hosting Chattanooga Red Wolves. Switchbacks FC, the USL Championship champions, are hosting New York Red Bulls, which is sort of a geographic oddity. I'm not quite sure how that one got drawn. The Tacoma Defiance, which are AKA Seattle Sounders Light, are hosting the Portland Timbers in a good Pacific Northwest rivalry. Riverhounds SC versus New York City FC. Rhode Island FC versus New England Revs. I think that's, I'm not 100% sure it's the first time they've met, but I think it's the first time they've met in anger. Philadelphia Union versus Indy 11. And that should be a pretty good one as well, considering how Indy scored a bunch in the Jagermeister Cup. So headed off to Philly. That should be fun.
Absolutely. I like some of those matchups. We'll get that in just a second. Let me finish off the rest of the matches from that round. Louisville City versus Minnesota United. Tampa Bay Rowdies versus Orlando City. I like that. There's a lot of meat right there. Chicago Fire versus Detroit City. That's fun. St. Louis versus Union Omaha. FC Dallas versus AV Alta. Austin versus El Paso Locomotive. Rising FC versus Houston Dynamo. And last, San Jose Earthquakes versus Sacramento Republic. Josh, I'm curious for you, what pops? What's the one you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to do that?
I mean, that Tampa Bay Rowdies game versus Orlando, that is sort of an old USL banger there before Orlando moved over to Major League Soccer. That one's got my attention. San Jose versus Sacramento gets nasty. Those two teams don't like each other. Those two fan bases don't like each other. That could be nasty. But for me, it's Tacoma Defiance hosting the Portland Timbers. As a former season ticket holder for Major League Soccer's Portland Timbers, I still get up a little bit for Tacoma, for Seattle. I can't help it. Part of me wants just can a hole just open up in the earth and swallow that whole Tacoma team. That would be fun.
Well, we mentioned Louisville City and the tear that they've been on in USL Championship. I am looking forward to that matchup with Minnesota United. Minnesota United is a club that, for those that don't know, was started off in the NASL and has a lot of lower league roots, second division roots. So I think that there's a lot of connective tissue here, but I'm excited to see sort of the home atmosphere for this matchup and what we get out of this. I think that's fun. Detroit City against Chicago, though, that I love that. That's two big Rust Belt cities battling out. Detroit City obviously has a rabid fan base. Chicago Fire also, though they've gone through dark times over the last couple of years, also has a very dedicated fan base as well. I think that's a lot of fun. I totally will be down for that. Rhode Island FC going against New England Revolution. I can't say that I know much about New England Revolution right now as far as how good of a team they are.
Right.
But I can say that Rhode Island FC is a very good team, and I'm excited to see them battle out with New England. I think, I tend to think of the New England area as sort of a continuous area of I don't know the actual distances between these things, but to me, Rhode Island and Massachusetts, that seems close to me.
Close.
I don't know.
I mean, you live in Texas, so anything else seems like
I've had this conversation many times.
Yes,
I've been made fun of many times. It's quite all right. I'm very good. All I can say is, round of 32 for the Open Cup, absolutely fun. Very excited for that, and we're always going to be rooting for a championship side or a League
Underdog.
One side to knock off MLS side for sure.
I want to throw in look for the big Protagonist Soccer round of 32 US Open Cup preview. That should drop either next Monday or Tuesday morning. We've got our friends, our podcasters, our buddies. They're going to get their written portion. So we'll get that all corralled up and put out there early next week, so you could see our full preview of this round.
And we'll be discussing the results of this round, obviously, next week on the show. So that'll probably be our headline topic. Just guess it.
Fun times.
Yeah, for sure. We love the Open Cup.
Dan, the amateur leagues are open for business. They're popping off, Dan. We've got the Southwest Premier League, the Cosmo League, the San Francisco Soccer Football League. The League for Clubs is rocking. Well, one division of it. I think the other three start soon, not to mention USLW, WPSL, and the UWS. They all start ASAP. USL League 2 kicks off this weekend with 3 games. The rest start next weekend. We got Coachella versus SoCal Seahorses, San Juan versus San Francisco City FC, Monterey FC 2 versus Project 510. The NPSL has been going for about a month with a couple of US Open Cup darlings involved. Dan, El Farolito host Cruisers in the Golden State Conference. Virginia Dream host Alexandria Rough Diamonds. UPSL is also in full swing. You've got Little Haiti taking on Inter Miami Academy. Little Rock Rangers 2 host Tulsa Athletic. Dan, we've done a whole lot of focusing on kicking off the championship. League One, the Jagermeister Cup. We followed the first few rounds of the US Open Cup intently, but the very root of what you started Protagonist for, what I joined you for, was to give top tier coverage to lower tier soccer. For some, that can sound denigrating, insulting, but can you take a second to hype up the amateur leagues and explain why lower league soccer or lower tier is not meant as an insult?
That's so funny because if you listen to that appearance that I did on Scuffed podcast, this also came up because I said that because I've always been one to say lower league, because if you go into, say, England, non-league is the word that they often use for amateur soccer. We tend to use lower league in the United States, but for me, that is no insult. It is quite all right to know your limitations, to know your potential, to know what did Robert Blake say? That a man's reach should always exceed his grasp, and that is okay to know what your limitations are as a club and where you fit in within the ecosystem of soccer. And I think that there is a common misconception within the American system that only Division 1 matters, or only Division 2 and Division 1 matter. And the reality is that those divisions exist based off the talent that is generated out of the lower leagues, because our lower leagues are full of the next generation of soccer stars that will go on to play within these big leagues. I'm reminded of when the NPSL was, I believe it was their 25th anniversary. Maybe I can't remember now, but they had an anniversary and they picked their top 10 players of all time, and their number one was Chris Wondolowski, and that is a player who became a San Jose legend, who played on the U.S. men's national team, but his career started playing in these tiny fields across the Southwest, in lower league soccer. And that is, to me, there is no insult in knowing what your role is and what benefits the American system out of the lower league. It's never an insult for me to say lower league, no more than it'd be an insult for me to call my daughter a toddler. That's not an insult to her. That is exactly what she is. Someday she'll be a full-grown adult, but right now she's not. And I think that is a way to think about it. It is a stage in every soccer player's development. If this is a college player who's looking for extra reps, if it's an underage player who's looking to develop their talent before they go to college or before they go into, say, a bigger academy, these leagues are full of players who will influence the future of soccer. And there is no insult to play a role in the development of those players, and to even build a fan base at your level, wherever that level is, and be just as significant and be just as important as the biggest names in Division 1 soccer. You think about, I mentioned earlier, Vermont Green, and all the excitement that they've brought to that area when it comes to soccer and what Patrick and his team is doing up there. There are awesome things happening. There is no insult to call them lower league. They may play in USL League 2, which is an amateur league, but they are vastly important to their local community, and they are playing a very significant role in the soccer ecosystem in Vermont.
Dan, what sets these leagues apart from the pro game? Why are they so important to the ecosystem of soccer in this country?
Well, I know you could answer this question just as well as I could, but I'll say that.
But you sound so good when you do it.
Well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just kind of depends. But I'll say this about it certainly the way amateur soccer is constructed in the United States. There are two different models. There is the year-round model that we do see in the UPSL that plays plays 2 seasons every year, one spring, one fall, and so their rosters are made up slightly different than what you see in the spring model that you see, which is the USL League 2s, the NPSL, and a lot of the big regionals are playing that kind of system as well. And so because of that, their rosters are built differently, typically focused on the college player, with a sprinkling of over, the older guys and also those younger guys that still haven't had an opportunity yet. And I think that it's important to, again, not denigrate either approach. They're both different approaches, and they're generating and germinating talent in important ways with the rosters that they're working with. And so because of that, one, their rosters change pretty often usually because their players are in transition. They're either transitioning up or transitioning down. They're certainly a team like, you think like an El Federalito, who was the Protagonist Soccer Club of the Year last year. That roster is full of players from that area that have, they've played amateur, they've played pro. I know Kevin Gonzalez was on that team this year, a goalkeeper that we interacted with quite a bit in his NISA years. So I think that it's safe to say that I can't say this is the one way that amateur soccer clubs focus on developing talent. It's not. There's a lot of different ways that they're focused on it. But I can say that you're going to see typically a lot more roster turnover, and you're certainly going to see a different level of where they're playing. League standards are different in different leagues, and certainly you will see those Sunday pitches or Saturday pitches, like out. I remember for a long time people used to make fun of Tulsa Athletic for playing in a park. That's can happen. It definitely can happen. Again, it doesn't mean Tulsa Athletic, also a former Protagonist Soccer Club of the Year, is not an important club and does not serve an important role. And they've had great success in the Open Cup. So clearly they're a club that still functions regardless of not having the trappings of a big club.
And by the end of the season and into the fall, what kinds of stories will we be tracking to determine the aforementioned Protagonist Club of the Year? Like, what do these clubs have to accomplish to get our attention for this?
I think that, as we've grown as an organization, we have definitely focused a lot on the program, the levels that we do cover, and that does take a lot of our bandwidth. But I will always be a sucker for an underdog story, and amateur leagues are full of underdogs. Not only underdogs within their own leagues, but underdogs within the entire system. And so we love to tell the story of soccer clubs that are running, successful programs. We love to do player profiles of players that are succeeding at their level, and who knows where they end up in the future. I think that those are the kind of stories that we look for, stories that are interesting, that tell us something not just about soccer, but about human nature and about our country and about the human experience. I think those are the kind of things that are always going to inspire me as a writer, as a podcaster, as a content creator. And I know they inspire you too. And so connecting players and stories that are happening now, particularly with the history of the past and the things that have happened in the United States and within our soccer, sort of the landscape of soccer over the course of the last 120 years. I think there's so much meat on the bone. And every year I'm thinking, man, I just wish I had a little bit more time or a little bit more energy. We're always looking for help.
Yeah. Call us. DMs are open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan.
You thirsty boy.
I'm speechless. Just like, you could do that. Dan, are you ready to get the match of the week's previews?
My apologies for making you speechless. Yeah, match of the week for sure. I'm looking forward to this Saturday. I'll be at this match. I'm here for it. And of course, that match is the Derby del Camino Real. This is in USL Championship. El Paso Locomotive versus New Mexico United. You might remember that in the US Open Cup, this matchup also happened in New Mexico, and Locomotive walked out after penalty kicks with a win. I expect New Mexico to come ready to go here in El Paso. I love this matchup. It's a fun one. It's the supporters groups always connect with each other. There's a lot of community and a feeling of togetherness, but there's certainly a lot of rivalry as well. Both these clubs have basically a short history. El Paso is just a year older than New Mexico United, and New Mexico United has in some ways dwarfed El Paso Locomotive as far as their standing in sort of the national perspective. So I think that there's always, El Paso tends to feel a little bit like an underdog. Don't tell that to any of the Locomotive fans. They're probably going to hate me for saying that, but I love this matchup. Yeah, El Paso Locomotive hosting New Mexico United. Your boy Dan Vaughn will be there.
I wish that I could travel to Oakland for this one, Dan, but Oakland Soul, actually, this will be in Stockton, California. I am Correcting myself. Oakland Soul will travel to Knowles Field in Stockton, California to kick off the USLW League's 2025 campaign. The last time they played was back on May 5th of 2024, and it finished 0-0. Oakland finished second in the NorCal division last year and headed to the league playoffs, while Stockton were fourth and did not. I think they may want to change that this year, Dan, and getting a win over a very good Oakland Soul team would be a good start, but it won't be easy. The Soul are coming back strong. They are looking to unseat the Cal Soccer Storm as division champions, and if both come out strong, this should be a whopper to watch. I wish I could be there. I'm praying for a stream.
I don't pray for anything. I make it happen, but I will say this. 2 years ago, Stockton Cargo sent me a t-shirt. Still one of the most comfortable t-shirts in my closet. I love weering it.
What can you say?
I just thanks Lee. That's what I should
go.
say. Thank you, Lee.
That's
I
what you say.
appreciate it. Absolutely. It's the least I can say. Absolutely. Well, Josh, you let me lead off the match of the week previews. Are you ready to go off topic and wrap up this episode?
Let's do it.
Do it.
Chattanooga FC announced they will put a team in the UPSL starting this fall. CFC 2 will compete in the Georgia division. It shows growth and healing for Chattanooga Football Club that despite the gutting that occurred several years ago, and that what the club stands for is important to the city of Chattanooga. Well, I don't necessarily love MLS, and I don't have a great opinion of MLS Next Pro. Seeing more young players given an opportunity to play soccer is certainly heartwarming.
Absolutely. My timer's not working right today.
Boo.
The technical issues today.
It's a day. Well, let's see if the timer works for you, Dan. Why don't you take 30 seconds to go off topic?
Yeah. Why not?
When you're ready.
I'll try. Let's my timer's not working. So count it off, Josh. I want to say this episode has been perfect. It's highlighted this time of year for me, which is it's the time of year when all of the amateur leagues are kicking off. The professional leagues are crushing it. They're all rolling. And I'm thinking, boy, I wish I had time to write, to podcast, to do all the things that I want to do to cover all of these leagues. And I don't have time. This year has been particularly difficult because I have, at this point, a 6-month-old. She's a time pinch.
29,
but if you want to volunteer and help us out, as we mentioned before, we'll take you. Joshua Duder, I'm going to get that timer working next week. I appreciate you doing the work there.
I love it.
Well, Joshua Duder, we have, I think, done a very good job at talking about some cup competitions, looking at the amateurs and why they're important. I don't have any complaints about this show at all, aside from the technical issues.
It's a good episode. We've got lots of things cooking. Dan, I know you've got some projects you're working on, articles coming out next week. I would be very curious if you're watching this video, hit us up. Let us know that you've watched it. Hit us up on Blue Sky. That's where we are living now. And I want to know if you are watching this and if you'd be interested maybe in getting this in your email inbox. Maybe we'll put this in a good old love letter to you once a week.
I love a good love letter. Speaking of those projects that we're talking about, I should have an article out on Friday about an awesome supporters group in Union, Omaha, and the work that they're doing to make soccer a safer space for LGBTQIA community. It's awesome stuff. The Proud Owls got a chance to interview the founder and sort of talk about what they're doing in Omaha. Really cool stuff, and I'll be excited to tell that story.
I love what's going on in Omaha, Dan. I love it.
I just realized as I was saying all that you're wearing a Union Omaha. Is that a shirt and a hat?
This is from their last big Open Cup run, limited edition print, baby. I'm all Union Omaha for this round.
I love it. I should have paid more attention. I guess I should have had you pitch that article. Well, that's it for this episode of TPS. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with Open Cup plus several other topics to talk about. We'll look forward to a match and maybe go off topic a little bit. Thanks, Josh. Have a great night.
Ciao.